Welcome to the Draft Professor. I am joined today by two draft professors, Daniel and Jake. We're going to be going through some first round scenarios starting at 23 in the draft order here in a few minutes. Daniel, fresh off a great mock draft last night. How are you feeling early on Saturday morning?
I'm doing good, doing good. I'm really excited to be back here with Draft Professor, just talking some ball, and got some more time to do so. So very excited, and just ready to see some promotion of Monroe Freeling, and to see just that's been my player I've been feeling everybody out with. It's kind of my test I've been throwing out this year and this week. Just like, all right, how do you feel about Monroe Freeling? And I feel like everyone's pretty high on him, so that's pretty good.
And Jake, it's your first of two podcasts this week, or I should say this weekend. How are you feeling? And we can start the Monroe Freeling propaganda.
Yeah, I'm good. This is, we're a couple days away from an important stop in the cycle, so that's exciting for sure. And I think it's really interesting to talk about the playoff teams with this like kind of setup that we have for this pod, just to see like, all right, with these playoff teams, where are like the needs, what players match kind of the value of the needs, and kind of even what happens if they go off script, for a player like the team we're going to talk about. They've been heavy on the trenches early for the most part, or premium positions early, and it's just interesting to see like that's going to be a fun team to kind of dissect, to see where we go.
And Jake, where are you on Monroe Freeling right now?
Boy, the more I watch, the more I'm really excited of just how like I think it's really fun to watch like tackles who can just move like that. Like just they don't look out, some guys can get over their skis, can cross their feet when they're trying to cover a lot of ground, in pass pro, or guys just they don't have enough of the initial quicks and the sustained acceleration to get to like spots when they're pulling, or get to second levels, or get out to there on the tunnel screens, like all of that stuff. To see a guy who can consistently do that is really impressive. And I think there are a lot of times in pass pro now, everybody, the kind of the big discussion coming off of the Super Bowl was how Will Campbell retreats a lot when he is getting contacted in pass pro. When that phase starts, he is in retreat mode, and he's very much a two-hand puncher. And it feels like Freeling, even when he's retreating, he does a really nice job of timing up a little bit of forward push, right? He's never really on the heels when he's in the contact phase, which I think is really, really impressive to see. And so when you have a guy who's, yes, I know, like, we're working backwards on the 45-degree set, we're the vertical sets, but he's still in a position where you don't feel like, okay, he's on the heels or too far out over the toes where he's going to lose balance. And so I think that is something that, it's not surprising to start hearing guys, like McShay, like DJ talk about like, oh yeah, no, the gap here between these Utah guys and Freeling really isn't that big. And it's really not hard to see why. Like, I think, there's been a discussion about Utah running the ball a ton, which again, teams are obviously that's not going away when they go to the next level. But the battle tested, Freeling in the SEC versus guys who basically it was like, hey, when are we playing Texas Tech, right? For guys out in the Big 12, so not tested with as many different types of rushers. So I feel like that's again probably where you're going to start to see kind of Freeling. Who knows how high the talk gets. Like, if you're, I mean, I know he played left tackle, but what if Kansas City says, yeah, we don't like a right tackle anymore. Like, we're going to overhaul this just like we did, right? Or, maybe the Saints are like, you know what, we can put Fuanga back on the interior where he, most people felt he's more comfortable. Like, I don't know when that conversation starts. Does it start with the Browns at 6, perhaps? Like, is that where we're going to start getting to with him? I don't think anything's really off the table.
If I'm the Browns, I don't think I would move off of Monroe Freeling at 6. They need offensive line help, but
They do.
We will probably get into that here in a little bit. So we are going to jump into a discussion of first round grades for the Philadelphia Eagles. And we're going to use the Draft Professor Simulator, and we're going to do a first round Fanatic Challenge, which is 5 unique one-round drafts for Philadelphia. So Philadelphia was a playoff team this year. And Jake, as you think of what you think Philadelphia is going to do in the draft, what are your opinions?
Well, there's a lot going on with the offensive line right now. Dickerson's been banged up for some time now, and Lane Johnson, he's coming back. That's great news. And I know they drafted Cameron Williams last year, right? It's kind of like, okay, this is kind of our next project. Let's see if we could develop him, 2-3 years down the line, and then we'll see. But it does feel like they are in a position where they could kind of still address it. Like I don't expect the Eagles where they don't just put one thing in their basket when it comes to the trenches. I would not be surprised if, again, Freeling might come into the conversation here, but I feel like that we're kind of way past that at this point. Like I don't feel like we're going to be able to talk about him.
Yeah, Freeling's already off the board at 17.
So it's just if they really wanted to take another kind of maybe more developmental swing, or they feel like Proctor is emergency tackle starting guard and they feel comfortable doing something like that in the first round, like that's probably what they're gonna be thinking about. Maybe Iheanacho is somebody they would still consider as well, but I do feel like they do have the interior to address as well. I don't think Tyler Steen is I don't think he's gonna end up being their starter. And so Proctor is maybe a direction I could see them at least exploring when it comes to the offensive line, but I could also definitely hear, the argument for Iheanacho of like, okay, Lane's here, like he's coming back, and then okay, perfect. We have a guy who can go in, learn from this guy. Boom, we're putting him in at right tackle in maybe 2027. So like I think both of those avenues for a team that you're losing Stoutland, there's injuries up and down. You got an aging Lane Johnson, like that feels like something that, again, Howie Roseman, I don't think he's going to mess around when it comes to offensive or defensive line needing help. Like it just seems like what they do.
Daniel, with the offensive tackles that are available, do you have a first round grade on Iheanacho or Proctor?
I do on Iheanacho. I think he's actually gonna. I think I could very well see these rankings flip flop here with Proctor and Iheanacho. I think just seeing him up close, he's just a really softball clay, right? He doesn't have any bad habits. He's really newer to football. He just moves so well laterally. The same things I love about Monroe Freeling, I love about Iheanacho. So I think he's going to go first round. And like you said, I think he's a bona fide right tackle, like no question about it. He is a right tackle. And just, okay, how do you value a right tackle? Some don't value him as much as left. I think they're neck and neck for me. All five are just the same importance. I can't put them, more important on the left than the right these days, in my opinion, just because
spoken like a center.
Yeah, it's the most important part in the field. And when people knock guys just because they're a guard or a right tackle, pretty much just not a left tackle, I don't really get it. And I'm like, you need all angles of the line covered, right? Everything's important. It's 5 is 1. That's what they say. And it's true. Now, as for Proctor, I think he is going to sneak into the first round. Why? Because I think once the tackles start going, then they're just going to really start going. And Caden Proctor, I think, has improved a lot of stuff with his motor, in my opinion, this past year. I think that was some of my questions, just kind of taking some plays off the year before. But this year, I think the only thing, if he loses about 10 pounds, he's good to go. And I think you made a great point, Jake. Yeah, he could fill in at guard, emergency guard a little bit. But as for Iheanacho, I have him as a bona fide right tackle, and first round grades on both of them.
Okay. And do we think the Eagles would do Iheanacho over Parker, Howell, or Mason Thomas?
Knowing the Eagles, maybe not, but I think they should.
Well, yeah, knowing the Eagles. Yeah, I like the way you put that.
Yeah.
Maybe not, but I think they should.
Yeah, that's a tricky one because their edge room right now is they have 3 guys in it, right? Like it's Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt, Jose Ramirez under contract, but I do think, I think if you're Philly and you know what you have star power wise, you feel comfortable with your quarterback, you feel comfortable with Barkley still there. Like I'm just not sure. Like the 5 is 1 is a great point. Like if you're not good enough in a couple spots, even though you have like 3 stars on your offensive line, the cracks, they started to show this year. And and especially it's going to be even bigger, right, when Lane Johnson eventually, decides I'm going to hang it up. Like then okay, now, if you don't go Iheanacho here, do you feel comfortable? Like, obviously you'll have next draft, right? But, how are you feeling heading into the offseason with Cameron Williams and his development? How's he doing? Like, all this stuff, like they're going to have questions to answer there for sure. So if they feel like Iheanacho is heir apparent, we could get him in the building, this is the guy. Like, we can make this happen in a year of development. Even though obviously Stoutland's gone, we have great teachers in the building as well as the coaches. So like that, I feel like is a really nice situation they'd enter into it. And it doesn't, obviously, the edge rushers, great conversation that we're probably about to have, but yeah, it'll be nice for Jalen Hurts, I think, if in 27 it's Iheanacho and oh gosh, name escaping me, Mailata at the tackle spots. So that would feel, I think they'd feel a lot better about that as their plan.
So I picked Ian Achor. Simulator starts a second mock. Ian Achor is sniped before the Eagles are on the clock at 23. So Proctor's here. Wide receiver, Casey Concepcion is here. And then probably a bunch of round 2-3 wide receivers.
Sadiq as well. Did I see Sadiq?
Sadiq is here as well.
That'd be an underrated pick, I think, for Philly, maybe.
Yeah, I like it. I think he can do a lot. I think he's going to do more than, they were trotting Calcaterra out there as their tight end too, right? Like, he is basically a receiver. Like, he can't block. Like, it was very clear that they were still running him out there to try to. Like, Sadiq, even if he's taking on like kind of the ancillary pieces in the run fit, like linebackers, maybe your wide nines, safeties rolling into the box, like, he can take care of those assignments. I think if he's 250, that will help sell me a long way of like being the true inline Y. Like, it's going to be tough if they're truly moving on from Goddard. Like, then it's kind of like, okay, can he do everything Goddard can do right now? I would lean no, but that doesn't mean he can't be. Philly goes out and they look at Njoku, right? Who has somebody who has developed really well in that area, and then they go, okay, now we're really comfortable because he has developed as a blocker. Then we can go get Sadiq. Now we're feel real comfortable in 12 because we know we have a player in Sadiq who's extremely good linear athlete and can make plays down the field for you while also still not being a liability, right, as a run blocker. Like, he will take care of linebackers and safeties. That I feel comfortable with.
Are you drafting a tight end in round 1 to run block?
I mean, I feel like if you're drafting one in round 1, they have to do both. To me,
okay,
I think they have to do both, and that's why like Loveland and Warren went top 15. I think you have to be able to.
Well, so I was going to pivot that to say, if the Eagles are considering Sadiq, it's because they need another weapon in the passing game. Who, oh, by the way, also blocks in the run game, right? Because there's a good likelihood they're moving on from AJ Brown. So Daniel, if you were to look at the wide receiver and tight end list here with Sadiq, Boston, Concepcion, Bernard, and the rest, who's the best offensive playmaker that's displayed?
Man, I could see the sentence going Jalen Hurts to about 4 or 5 of these guys for touchdown, and that would be, A-okay. That would be, these are pretty good picks here. I mean, Concepcion, Boston, big body, depends on really what you want. I think when you're losing a guy like AJ Brown, who, if you're going to lose him, I mean, that pretty physical north-south guy. I mean, if you are definitely going to trust Denzel Boston on filling that role, he could. If you want to go for a more smaller guy, like say Concepcion's going to be your guy. Seeing Chris Brazzell down there, I hate seeing his name close to anybody, just because I just want to go to default to Chris Brazzell because I love me some Chris Brazzell. But and then you have to ask yourself, like, okay, we want to have 2 tight ends. I think these days, if you want to be successful in the league, if you really want a championship and have a solid offense, you have to have 2 tight ends, in my opinion, or at least just a backup guy who can go and get a ball. And Sadiq could do that. It could be kind of like a likely Andrews situation, in my opinion, to where, this is kind of like your young guy, you're learning your tutelage from, and he's going to be your guy for the future. All depends if they're going to go free agents at wide receiver. So really, we're obviously, this is, the name of the business here. What we do in the draft talk is thinking for these billion-dollar organizations. So I would say there's some pretty decent tight ends here. I think this tight end draft is a little slept on. Like a guy like Trig and Jolie are two guys I absolutely love. And I think you could pass on tight end right here. So I would go with Denzel Boston in this particular options over here. I'd go Boston.
Jake, where do you have Boston graded?
We had this. I think we had this conversation last week.
It's a different podcast.
Him and
for some of you
Brazel.
who don't remember the
Yeah,
conversation.
him and Brazel, I think, are close. Brazel the hip sync, it kind of separates it for me. But if they're looking for if Philly wants the ball winner, I jump up and through with a ton of composure at the catch point. I'm never really off balance when I'm attacking. If they want that bigger body type, that's where they probably lean Boston, whereas Brazel would be probably a little more stretch the field with in addition to what he can do there. I feel like if they want okay, we want, downfield targets, which certainly Brazel can do, but if they want maybe more of that, the bigger frame to make the plays, I think Boston can fit in nicely for them.
Okay, so
because I agree with Daniel. I feel like the tight end group, even if you look at, I think Delp as somebody who you see a lot of explosiveness linearly, and if he can work on the hand placement a little bit more, it's inconsistent, but it's pretty impressive at times when blocking SEC ends. And then the Mississippi guy whose name is escaping me now, is it Daquan Wright? I think is the name that I think I'm searching for.
Yeah,
but he is another one, big body. If he's he tests well enough as an athlete, I feel like that's another one that they could be sleeping on. And even Max Clare in the second, where he has the frame to take over potentially the responsibility that you're giving, that you've been giving Goddard all these years. So it does feel like if they want, a maybe more complete player, that they feel like can reach certain ceilings as a Y that maybe Sadiq does not, then, they pass, they get a premium position. We talked about tackle, and go wide receiver there, which I think makes a lot of sense.
Okay. So I took Boston. Simulator gives us another first round. And Ian Achor and Boston are sniped.
Well,
and
yeah.
This Monroe Freeling against the field? I mean, Lomu's here this time too.
That's who right now. I'm just personally in my board. Who it's Lomu and Freeling for offensive tackle too for on my board right now, and I just don't know who to go with. And I don't think you could go wrong if you pick either one of these guys, honestly. But with you seeing, with the field, going here against a couple of these guys, it's hard. It's hard, and it's
if this is Howie Roseman, would it
right.
not be the SEC player?
Right.
Especially the Georgia player, not just the SEC player.
Agreed.
I think
so. Jake, any hesitation with taking Monroe Freeling at 23rd overall?
I don't think so with how they value the trenches. I don't. And Georgia guys on top of it. They got plenty of them.
Okay, so we did Ian Achor, Boston, Freeling. They're all sniped before the Eagles are on the clock at 23. Lomu is here. Other players that are here would be Concepcion, Brazel. Sadiq is here. Proctor and Lomu are here. Hood, Johnson, Abney, Cisse are here. Thieneman, McDonald, Hunter, Miller. Howell, R. Mason Thomas, Zion Young. I don't think Philly would go linebacker, but C.J. Allen and Anthony Hill are both here. Thoughts?
I mean, it seems it's probably lame because we're not talking about the other positions, but I feel like if Loam was also available for them, they're probably just going to do that. We had it. I think it was good to have the Sadiq conversation, but Philly in the first seems very no frills. This is,
I'm with you.
Play it straight. No questions asked. oh, a premium position. Can't believe it. Like they just seem to just kind of, they don't really deviate from that too much. Like even, and I think obviously them taking Devontae Smith, like I still think that falls in that bucket as well. Like they just don't seem to, and for a while they didn't really address corner early either. But I think Howie kind of realized like, okay, yeah, no, we need to fix this, and that's premium enough. And so, yeah, it's hard not to see someone like Lomu be the pick here, especially because I think, is this it for? No, Davis got one more. Yeah, I mean, I think they're pretty comfortable probably with their D tackle room to not like stretch for somebody unless maybe Peter Woods is available. Like they maybe do that, but yeah, it feels like Lomu is.
Daniel, any objections to Caleb Lomu to Philadelphia at 23rd overall?
None at all. I think it's a great pick, and I think honestly the Eagles need more of a home run pick than people think in this first round, in my opinion. I think it's a home run pick.
Okay, so Ian Achor, Boston, Freeling, Lomu, all off the board before the Eagles are on the clock. Falk dropped. I don't know that he was here before. So,
That would be interesting.
Daniel, any thoughts on, for the most part, it's the same wide receiver board.
Right.
Offensive tackles, it's Proctor in the field. Cornerback, Colton Hood. Chris Johnson. Thoughts?
And then Colton Hood. I think we haven't really touched on Colton Hood. I think that corner is the one position I am the most ignorant on. But Colton Hood jumps out the screen. So if a corner jumps out on the screen to me, I'm like, all right, cool. This guy is definitely a stud. Just because my eyes are so glued to the trenches in the play, I just all I look at mostly. So Colton Hood's a guy I've been really watching, digging into some tape on. I mean, but I don't know if it would go at this spot. It's really hard, like I said, to keep on going cliche. Like, okay, if Lowe moves off the board at this point, would they go Proctor? I mean, maybe. But I would say right here, and Keldrick Falk is a guy who I do think, there's definitely some better options before around this range and after, unfortunately. So I don't think this is a tricky situation for the first round on edge because the edge is so deep, and you could probably get a starter, on the back end, in my opinion, and you can probably get one, second, third round. I would go right here because I have on my team needs an outside corner. I don't know where Colton Hood falls with that in my, personally, to be honest, but I wouldn't be, too crazy.
He's not the largest corner. So he plays in the SEC, but if memory serves me correctly, Hood may not even be 180 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah, and then he's got limited starts, right? Like, doesn't he have some limited film where he's only been a starter for a little bit?
So, Jake, what are your thoughts here on, like, is one of these players graded significantly higher for you than the rest?
Man, it feels pretty even right now. Like, you could maybe, for me, say Concepcion, but again, I don't know. Philly, are they going to be like really tripping over themselves for a smaller receiver that isn't like insanely productive like Devontae Smith was, right? Like that felt like a special case. Yeah, Colton Hood, Senior Bowl has him 5'11" and 3/4, 188. I don't think that necessarily removes him from the options for Philly. The weird one is Falk because of how their front looks. I have to imagine that they might think he is a D tackle early downs in a kind of a 3-4 end for them, and then do they want him really outside the tackle rushing? When they get to those situations. So maybe for me, like if they're going to go edge, I think the kind of explosive play that R. Mason Thomas has, I feel like would potentially intrigue them if they were go that direction.
I like that. I like that a lot. I think they'll need somebody.
Like R. Mason Thomas here, Daniel?
I wouldn't eject at all. I think he's like I said, true edge. I got him at only 249, so he's going to kill you with some speed and get around you. They have plenty of guys in Philly that can go through you. Let's get some guys that can maybe go around you as well. So I like it.
So that was Ian Achor, Boston, Freeling, Lomu, R. Mason Thomas. And I'm loving the beginning of the R. Mason Thomas round one propaganda. that will continue on this channel, I promise. Okay, so now we're going to do the next team in the draft order. And in some ways, this team is easier to do, which is the Bears. But in some ways, it's going to be more difficult because the people doing it are Packers fans.
Yeah, it's not going to be fun to be giving them some good players. But they've seemed to have leveled themselves off, and like they've starting to find those guys, which is also unfortunate. I don't like it.
This is an Old Testament rivalry at this point. We have a a new era here with Chicago, and it's like at this point you got to earn to be the right. We'll see with the Indiana chapter here of the Bears, see how that shakes out.
True, very true.
So Ian Achor and Miller are here, and while Trapilo probably isn't ready week 1, I don't see the Bears addressing tackle in round 1.
Yeah, probably not. I think they're going to feel comfortable like either going out to get like a cheaper veteran at that position and maybe, swing on day 3 or something like that to go, maybe if this is a problem, okay, now it's a serious problem, we'll go address the serious problem. It does feel like they wouldn't, although, if they've been kind of floating out there like, hey, we'll, Darnell Wright, maybe we'll throw him over to the left side and then Ian Achor comes in. I wouldn't enjoy that very much. I would not be pleased. But
I don't think you can go wrong picking an offensive lineman that has positional flexibility in late round 1 when you have a question at left tackle. Like, to me, I would be because Caleb, the Bears are only going to go as far as Caleb Williams. But if you read Bears Twitter, it has to be front 4. Whether it's edge or defensive tackle, if I post a mock that doesn't address those 2 positions, rounds 1 and 2, I get negative feedback.
They will accuse you of being a Packers fan and not giving them what they need, I assume.
So between Lee Hunter, Caleb Banks, and Kristen Miller, Jake, who do you have graded highest?
For me, it's I think in terms of setting the floor right now of like feeling like, okay, we're moving in, like we need this guy to free up the linebackers, we need him to eat space. Like I feel like it's Hunter over the rest at this point because he is older. But I think Banks is 23 as well. But Hunter's older. I feel like he is, even though I feel like there are times where you see the pad level rise up and he loses some of that momentum when doing so. He still has violent hands rushing the passer. He can get to the bull rush pretty well. He's got the long arm, right? He can. I've seen him forklift a couple guys, right? Push the wrists, it'd go up. Like I think BYU, he did it a couple times. Like he's done that. He's springy enough, I think, as a mover. And I think as long as I think there are times where when he's facing doubles, if he gets that plant foot down in time, he holds it. When he doesn't, he gets pushed off. So that's really the biggest thing is like if he gets that plant foot down in time, they're probably not moving him. And so I do think if Chicago is like looking for like that type of player, which I've heard a lot of them, the Bears fans talk about McDonald a lot. Lee Hunter probably fits that bill as well. And I think would, certainly benefit them early, which does not please me, but it would.
So Daniel, between Kristen Miller, Caleb Banks, and Lee Hunter, who do you have graded highest?
Caleb Banks. I'm scared of that dude.
That's fair.
I'm so scared of that guy. Like he can lose 75% of the rep and still win the rep. Like it just doesn't matter. Like he just, after seeing him up close, like the eye test, I think that's what really. But you said Lee Hunter, like once he gets going, gets going, like it's over. But with Caleb Banks, like he can win the rep with a slow start and half the rep, and that's what really does it for me. Yeah, it's the physicals. Yeah, it's because he wears 330, like it's 300 flat, like it's 290, and. I just think you can't go wrong with that. You can't go wrong. He'll be 23 once he plays his first snap, and I love Caleb Banks here. And then, but Lee Hunter and Caleb Banks, you can't go wrong. But I really do think Caleb Banks is gonna have a long storied career.
And if we were doing this podcast 10 months ago, any question that this is Caleb Banks?
Oh yeah, I think it's a question. Oh yeah.
Right. From the standpoint of, I think Caleb Banks, if we were talking in June during summer scouting, nobody expects Caleb Banks to get out of the top 10.
No.
But he didn't play this year that much, right? I think he played 4 games, trying to come back from a foot injury and a few other medical issues. That's the reason that he's here.
Yeah.
Like, so I guess there's probably a discussion of we have recent tape on Hunter, and then we have a projection on Banks. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah, I think I think Hunter's more of a like pretty narrow like range of outcomes where it's like I don't think like Hunter's going to magically become like extremely explosive and more flexible, right? He seems sort of like okay, he's a solid athlete. He's worked a lot of technique, you can tell, and you know what he's going to be. Caleb Banks is that wide range of outcomes where it's like okay, it could be a swing and a miss at 25, but also if we drill in the proper technique and everything, the way he can win with just athleticism and power at this point, like all of that, like it does feel like if you coach him up correctly, you should be able to get more out of him, especially because of, like Daniel said, the way he plays it, like it doesn't feel like he's 330. It doesn't make any sense. So if the Bears are in a position where I feel like they probably are, where they're like, all right, we're a young team. Why not? Why would we not like swing for a superstar as well? Like I can see both sides of that where it's like, okay, if we believe in the development track, like we can make this work with Banks and you know, conversely, it's like, okay, well, Hunter, we know like he'll come in immediately and fill what we need to do X and Y, right? And maybe not Z, but we have, you know, more of the draft to go get guys that can maybe fill some of that.
And I always draft for the ceiling, so I picked Caleb Banks.
Yeah, that's fair.
It gives us the second mock. And Banks is sniped 4 picks before Chicago's on the clock. So this is Kristen Miller, Lee Hunter, TJ Parker, Cassius Howell, CJ Allen, Avion Terrell also dropped. I don't think he was here before. Daniel, who's your highest graded between Parker, Hunter, Howell, Allen, and Terrell?
I think it's Terrell. Terrell is our DB number 1 coming in. It's really close though. I know TJ Parker. I love him a lot. I think he's definitely a first rounder. So and then Cassius Howell is a guy where I think people are just feel like a little like burned or just afraid to put their neck out there with Cassius Howell at this point, in my opinion. You know, either you're on his side or not, I think right now. But I think I would either go Terrell or Parker right here, in my opinion.
Over Hunter. So even though we were about to pick Hunter last time, we would do either of those guys over Hunter.
Just because I think with the edges, there's going to be, I think, like a small period where if you take an edge, you're kind of reaching an 8th, and it's going to be after the first round. So I think if you're not going to take your edge in the first round, you could probably wait to the second half of the second or third round to really still get a solid edge or interior D lineman if you want to. But after that, I'd say second or third round, you will be kind of reaching. So I think right now at this point in the first round, I would say Parker, Terrell, or Hunter. I don't think you can go particularly wrong, but I would say Parker or Terrell with those two.
Okay. So then, Jake, if you have to weigh Parker, Hunter, Terrell, which of those 3 is graded highest for you? And then how big is the margin between the other 2?
I think it's a slight margin. I would also probably lean Terrell. I think for me, it's Hunter. I think after that, now, obviously, this isn't a need. I think CJ Allen's up there for me in terms of rankings amongst these guys. Like, I know that they're probably not thinking that direction. Right, what do you think about what Chicago's looking for, especially in the first round?
Well, I mean, Tremaine Edmonds got cut. I think they are looking linebacker.
I feel like the first tier for me of the linebackers is obviously Recent Styles, and then I think Allen. To me, Allen's by himself. I know that there's, again, we look at a lot of things, right? When we're looking at these guys, like PFF grades obviously come into some of the conversation, and you look at Allen's and like, oh, it's not very good, blah blah blah. I also feel like his assignments were harder than some of these linebackers were, in terms of what they were asking for him in coverage. Like they were asking him from the core of the formation, getting picked by, a guy in the mesh route coming across. Hey, you got to get to that wheel route, buddy. Like you better get over there. And so because they were asking him to do more difficult stuff, I think that probably reflects more in the grades than some others in coverage who were just asked to spot drop into the hook zones and just kind of not really do anything else. And so I do feel like Allen is probably, if people are looking at like, raw numbers or grades or all that, they might kind of sleep on him a little bit just because they go, well, these numbers don't look good or anything. But like Georgia asked him to do a ton. But if you're asking between like Terrell, Hunter, and Parker, yeah, I'd probably lean Terrell as well. Be very interesting to see, because obviously Terrell's a little bit smaller, but I have to imagine the Bears would want to keep Gordon at nickel. So then I think Terrell plays the boundary for you, but it doesn't feel like he's necessarily out of his element out there per se. Like the way he matches, right? His eyes are locked into, I feels like the core of the receiver, right? Which is really what tells the story. The head and shoulders can tell a different story. The footwork can sometimes tell a different story. Like he feels locked on the core of the receiver and how to match them. And that's impressive stuff. It's very easy to fall for a lot of what receivers do in and out.
So the BPA purist and all of us is saying that Terrell is graded significantly higher than 25th on the board right now. Do we think that Ryan Poles would do Terrell over Hunter?
I mean,
And we don't have a lot of data of Ryan Poles picking outside the top 10. So let's just state that we don't have a lot of data to back up whatever decision that we make.
I mean, I feel like when you look at what happened in round 2 last year of like, oh wow, here Luther Burden's here. Well, let's do it. Like, we're not afraid to do that, right? Even with 2 guys in the room who are going to command enough targets, right? And having taken Loveland, in the first, where it's like that's another guy who's going to command targets. They're like, no, we'll just keep going down this road. So
it sounds like it's Avion Terrell.
I think they could. I think this is in the realm of possibility.
You convinced me. You just needed to give me a sales pitch, and that worked. Okay, so third mock starts. Banks and Terrell snipe before the Bears pick at 25. Lomu's here. I don't think they would go Lomu over Hunter, Howell, Young, R. Mason Thomas, or other players. But Daniel, what are your initial thoughts of the way this board looks right now?
Yeah, totally agree. I would say this would be either, in my opinion, Hunter, Howell, or Young. So I think this would be a good selection here for Lee Hunter. I would take Lee Hunter.
Jake, any additional thoughts?
Yeah, I'd probably lean Hunter. I'm always down for the R. Mason Thomas propaganda if we want to go there as well. It does seem like the Bears, even though, again, I know Booker was it doesn't have like the weight of maybe some of these guys, but it does seem like other than him, but he's still tall and long. Like when you look at Booker, so like they have seemed to prefer the edge rushers who are taller, bigger, longer players. So that would probably, give credence to the idea of a Zion Young, right? If they're going to go edge of like, yeah, this is a big, powerful guy. He's in the 260 range. Like that's something we would potentially do. But yeah, I feel like Hunter is somebody that made a lot of sense.
I took Hunter. Sure. So Banks, Terrell, and Hunter are off the board before Chicago picks. So Lomu, Ian Achor, and Freeling have all dropped to 25.
Yeah.
Wow.
And would they do that over R. Mason Thomas or Zion Young?
Freeling probably. Unfortunately.
I feel Daniel, like any additional thoughts? I mean, if the second best left tackle in the draft falls to pick 25 and you need a left tackle.
Definitely all day. Yep. I would hate to see that, but yes, that would be a good pick for the Bears.
That would be tough.
That'd be a great pick, man. Monroe Freeling, he's a dog.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Okay. And then The fifth one, so Banks, Terrell, Hunter, Freeling, all off the board. Caden McDonald dropped. Is this to me, my initial thought is it's a Caden McDonald, CJ Allen, Zion Young discussion. I don't think they would do Ian Achor over McDonald, but Jake, your thoughts on how this board looks to you?
Yeah, I think with McDonald, right, younger player. So you've seen what he could do at the point of attack, right, and handling doubles, and you're not resetting the line of scrimmage on this guy at all. Period. Now, at 21, right, and I think he's 21 in like March or something like that. Do they think they can get enough out of him, in the coming years' development as a pass rusher to be willing to do that? And I think Lee Hunter's maybe a good example for them of like, oh yeah, this is what McDonald could eventually do and be more productive as a pass rusher as time goes on with development. And maybe that's what sells them there. If that's what they're looking for, and they clearly have, it's pretty bleak, their D line room. I know they're hoping for like Shamar Turner to come back and do something, right? Dexter's going to be a free agent after this year. They brought in Grady Jarrett, and it kind of went like I kind of thought it might go for him, of like it's just he's kind of past it a little bit. So they probably wouldn't hesitate here, I think, with McDonald. Although I would be interested for sure in looking at, Lomu or R. Mason Thomas. But if we're talking about like what we think Chicago would probably do, it's probably McDonald.
Daniel, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think with McDonald, with one of those interior guys, have such violent hands, and that's what really pops out on tape with me. I wouldn't hate that at all, and I'm not the biggest Jordan Love guy, so that might actually be good for the Packers as well. We don't know, we don't know. But I like Kate McDonald. Like you said, he's a young guy, and he's got a lot of good. But he really benefited from having about 8 bigger brothers around him that could fight.
That's true.
There's
no question about that. Yeah, it's nice when you have 0, 8, and 2 on your team.
Yeah,
for sure. There's no question.
Okay, so the next team in the draft order, the Buffalo Bills. For me, like, this is where this exercise for me is very entertaining, because like I podcast with you guys all the time, but we don't necessarily talk about
the Bills,
your boards relative to the Buffalo Bills needs.
Sure.
That's not usually what comes up, but we get to do that here for like the next 20 minutes. So Buffalo could draft every position on the field except quarterback, running back, and tight end, and it's going to be a good pick, right? Like I could sell Monroe Freeling as a replacement to Deion Dawkins. I don't think that's what we should do, but I could sell it.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Like we think Dawkins has like maybe 3 years left, but if Freeling is here, and he's not right now, but if he's here, I would consider it. The big needs, though, are wide receiver and an edge with juice. So, like Keldrick Falk, no. R. Mason Thomas, yes. We need R. Mason Thomas level juice on the edge. An outside linebacker edge hybrid, because it's going to be an odd man front. So I would say if I have to narrow it down to 2 positions, it would be wide receiver and edge, but I wouldn't hate Lee Hunter either. So my question to you guys, if you had to look at like wide receiver and edge between Concepcion, Parker, Hurst, Howell, but Howell not so much, and R. Mason Thomas, who do you have graded highest, Daniel?
Theodore Hurst. I mean, this guy is an absolute killer, man. I really like Concepcion too, but with Hurst being such a big body, like Josh Allen needs a big body to go and throw it up too, man. Like get this guy as someone with some athleticism, sure hand that can run all the routes. Like just if you like Josh, if the Bills want to protect Josh Allen, and I know he's protection is usually offensive line, but get him some sure hands, man. Just get him a target where he can go to and any down, right? Any third down. It doesn't matter where they're at on the field, whether it be, in their own territory or the red zone. Ted Hurst just fits that team and fits their scheme, in my opinion.
And Jake, where are you on the wide receiver versus edge board right now?
Yeah, I think I lean receiver unless we're going to go Mason Thomas here, but I'm sure we're going to make that pick happen with one of these 5. No question about it. Yeah, I think that the tricky thing is, I think if you were to look at, like, for me, like what's here available at receiver, who's the best at like getting open, setting up routes, right, doing all of the finer points of it, Concepcion is. Now, here's the problem. The Bills have now watched, hey, we brought in Brandon Cooks. That was fun, right? And Concepcion, if you watch him, he drops passes, and like the lack of catch radius, I feel like that's going to bother people. I feel like that's, Josh Allen's thinking in the back of his mind, probably like, man, I just need somebody bigger out there, right? Who can take care of some of these things. So that's maybe the thing where Concepcion, I'm like, nah, if I need somebody to get open and Allen to trust to get open, that's where I'm leaning. However, are they going to be okay with the biggest guy in their receiver room kind of in the doghouse, called out by your by an owner, and to me cannot right now play on the boundary, and what a development by Shavers, but obviously now we're ACL tear, right? Who knows when we're going to see him? So yeah, it does feel like big body. Like, I feel like, seeing Josh Allen throw deep balls to Chris Brazzell would be a lot of fun, but if you look at like the size and the acceleration, and then some of the highlight reel catch point stuff, like, Ted Hurst does feel like a very, very fun selection.
Okay. So 2 votes for Ted Hurst. I'm here for the propaganda.
It's just they need that dang body type. It's just like it's escaping them, and the body type who can win out there.
Every
right,
championship team, in my opinion, has a guy like that, right? Just a big physical guy that meets the ball in the air, can go and high point a ball. Like, every team that wins championships, that has that. Show me a team that doesn't.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, so the next mock, Hurst has been sniped, and Concepcion, Allen, Hunter. I could sell Phenom in here.
Okay.
And I could even do Trotter. Our Mason Thomas must be further down. Yep, he's further down. He's here as well. So I don't think this is Parker. Like, if I did process of elimination, like, Randall really likes Surratt. Owen likes Surratt here. But I think Concepcion is a better overall player than Surratt. Where are you guys on Surratt versus Concepcion?
Go ahead, Jake.
I have Concepcion higher. I think Surratt, while I feel like Surratt has a lot of the finer points in terms of release strategy, adaptability, footwork, all of that, and then his ability to, create catch point separation, right? He's great on the back shoulder stuff. To me, that sounds like Pittsburgh round 2 if Rodgers comes back. Does it to anyone else, right? Back shoulder guy. Wow, that's But I do think he's a little limited in terms of gear shifting when it comes to like second, third gear as a receiver of like, I'm going to be able to run away from some of these guys, and when I get out of the break, I can spring and maintain that separation I've generated. So that's kind of maybe the thing that's a bit of a drawback for Surratt, where I go, man, you put him in the slot where he can just kind of dissect coverage and win with footwork like that. More similar to what kind of Keenan Allen did for a long time, right? Less so on the boundary, but that's not, the Bills don't need that, right? We've seen all the slot guys that the Bills have right now on the roster, right? Like, I would lean toward a guy who I feel much more comfortable with getting and sustaining, I think, even more importantly, separation on the boundary.
Daniel, do you think Concepcion can win at all 3 levels of the field?
I think he could. I think he can. I think he's a third down safety blanket in a lot of ways, and you can draw up some stuff for him. When you got a guy like Josh Allen, he could definitely find you out there. You don't have to be as big as Ted Hurst. But if you are, if it's Ted Hurst and Concepcion, I'm going to go Hurst. But if he's off the board, then yeah, Concepcion would be my next pick for sure. And I would feel very comfortable with that. I think he's a guy that, you need a big physical guy, but you also need a little speedster. It's just which one's easier to find and which one do they value more.
Okay, so Hurst and Concepcion are off the board. Boston's here, but I'm just going to be like, no, that's an advanced version of Keon Coleman.
Okay.
So to me, if I had to look, I think this is R. Mason Thomas. So, Jake, where is R. Mason Thomas graded for you right now?
Right now, as I've gone through, I think 4 games of his, he's going to be either a late 1 or an early 2 for me. And I think it's simply because I think he has built up a pretty good repertoire off of his speed, enough of which where I feel comfortable of like, okay, you can enter the game. Like if a guy is just winning, and only has, that speed to win around the arc, like I would be a little more concerned, but I think he can work off of that, and the flexibility is really good. And so I'm comfortable with him in this spot. I think I would probably actually rank Mesidor a little higher than him at this point, but obviously, Mesidor is older. He has refined his plan. He's had lots of time to do it. Whereas I feel like, Mason Thomas, there may be a ceiling untouched there where it especially because, as I look at the Bills edge defender room, right? Like obviously they had Epinesa, right? Now Landon Jackson, Rousseau, a lot of these bigger, longer guys that us Packer fans are very familiar with Van Ness and Gary and guys like that. So we know this. And we finally went out and traded for a speed rusher, and look what happened. So I feel like that, I think, would be really, really nice for them here, is getting someone like Thomas, who I feel like also has kind of the frame and length that can at least lend itself to being able to play more, in terms of early down stuff rather than a Howell, where like I feel like Howell is like, to me, the final piece. Like you have everything else kind of built into your front where you go, okay, now we just need somebody to come on and go get some wins on 3rd and 8. Like that is really nice. But R. Mason Thomas, I think, provides a little bit more than Howell.
And if Howell's there in round 2, I think he's a perfect fit for this defense. But I don't think you take somebody that's the outlier in round 1. Like, I don't want to be the GM that selects Ruben Bain in round 1.
Okay.
Right? There's enough of an outlier aspect that I don't want to be the one that was proven right that Bain can succeed. I would prevent myself from being proven wrong, I think is the right way to put it.
Okay.
Daniel, where are you on R. Mason Thomas right now?
I'm right here with Jake. I have him right around as a late 2nd, early 2. It just depends. I'm a position guy. I'm going to take always position needs first, especially with the 1st round. Best player available, I think that comes back later in the draft, in my opinion. So, yeah, I really like that pick. It really for me, it depends with R. Mason Thomas is when these tackles start coming off the board. If the tackles come off the board kind of earlier and mid, and there's not too many 1st round like gradable at the end, then it depends. But if these tackles don't start going till like middle of the 1st round, like start big group of them, because I think we could see 5 offensive tackles go 1st round. If we've already got right around 4 or 5 at this point, then yeah, I could definitely see them going R. Mason Thomas here. Okay. I like it.
So if Hurst, Concepcion, and R. Mason Thomas are off the board, and Buffalo's looking between Lee Hunter, Dylan Thieneman, and then any wide receiver that you would choose to invoke. Jake, how does your board stack up? Like, how many wide receivers are ahead of Lee Hunter for you?
Let me see. Hold on.
That's not a question you get asked every day.
No, it is not. 1, 2, 3,
4. And then, Daniel, how many wide receivers do you have ahead of Dylan Thieneman?
I would say I definitely Brazel, but then again, that's more of a team need thing for me. But I would say just out of this group, Boston, Surratt, and then Brazel's right there with where I have Thieneman. Just depends on, like I said, what's getting taken at the time. But I think this actually could be a really good, pick for Thieneman, in my opinion. I think this wouldn't hate that at all.
And then is Omar Cooper Jr. even in the conversation this late in round 1 for either of you?
I don't think he's
shaking your head. No.
No, it sucks to go against a guy who I think made the best catch of college football history, but no, not right now. I think there's a little bit of an unknown with him, and I think you can get him probably a little bit later.
And then, Jake, where are you on, does Omar Cooper Jr. come into the conversation?
I don't want to. I don't like saying this, but like also this is the Bills right now, and I don't think you can afford to be wrong, right? Like Cooper has played in the slot a bunch, and he's really good at it. And the slot fades, winning after the catch is really good. The problem is if the Bills do this again and they take Cooper here and he can't play in the boundary, they're going. I mean,
Right.
they're going to be beside themselves. They're like, man, we can't. We keep trying to pick these guys who we think could be perimeter guys, and they're not perimeter guys. Oh man, that would hurt to the core. I do think Tiedemann would be. This is a really nice spot for him. I think where he is maybe again just not. He's especially at Oregon at least he's not the flashiest player, but a guy who's again moves well enough, right? Tackles well enough, in position plenty. Right, and then you still have, I think, the icing on the cake, which is like, can you make some plays in the air? He can. He has proven that. So I think in terms of like well-rounded ability to have the movement skills, right, to take on, when we're talking about flying downhill to make plays, right, in the run game, in the, screen game to the outside, like doing all that, working across the field, all of that stuff, and then also the tackling, plus, some of these the ball skills that you've been able to see, kind of icing on the cake. I feel like this is, I think this is a fine spot to go after somebody like Tiedemann if they're in dire straits to go, we need to get a safety in the room.
Okay.
Obviously, the argument against it is this is a deep safety class, and can you find more of those players down the line?
Okay. Oh, so this one's going to be interesting. Ooh. So Hurst, Concepcion, R. Mason Thomas, Thieneman snipe before the Bills pick. Lee Hunter and Caden McDonald and TJ Parker are there. So the question would be like, what wide receivers would be? To me, this is one of the two defensive tackles. Maybe Anthony Hill or CJ Allen, but CJ Allen is not available.
I think we had CJ Allen available on the first go round, but I think they're not letting us have that anymore.
Well, so the algorithm for this is no team can select the same player more than twice. So when the first round happens, if a player went in round one twice, that team isn't allowed to select that player anymore, and it has to go to the next player on their draft card, just to give it some variety. So that's ultimately how we see like Caden McDonald drop the last two times. But on this simulator, he tends to go pretty high. For an odd fun defense, do either of you have an opinion on Hunter or McDonald, Jake?
Yeah, I mean, I think if they're needing it, I feel like to me at least, again, could be wrong on this for sure, but to me, like I feel like Hunter could align in a couple different spots. Like it doesn't feel like he's necessarily, especially with the Bills who they have, right? Like they have Deon Walker, who has been disruptive, right? Is a big body, and then obviously Ed Oliver, who you talk about like dominant run defending defensive tackles. He certainly is one. And so with all the kind of body types in the room, like it doesn't feel like Hunter, they're going to necessarily ask him, be like, you have to do this or you have to do this. Like it feels like they're in a position where Hunter can, I think to me, at least at this point, can play multiple spots. Whereas I feel like with McDonald, I feel like I'm more pigeonholed into like, okay, I think we kind of, this is where he needs to be, especially early in the career. So yeah, if they're going to go defensive tackle.
Well, and the like need Hunter would be the nose tackle and an odd front, right?
Which and if they're going to do that, like Lee Hunter could do that. I've no doubts about that. Plus, he's giving you, I think, a little bit extra right now for a team who, again, you don't want to always get into this mode of like, we can't wait for guys to develop, but a team was in the mode of like, man, if we could just get a couple guys more in this building who could get people on the ground, in key spots and push the pocket and generate pressure, like we're in a good position to go take this whole thing. And I feel like Hunter gives you that a little bit more, even from that position. Whereas I do feel like, again, if he's in the nose tackle, the odd front, like I'm comfortable with that. And then also, you ask him, I think, over McDonald at this point to get pressure, that I would lean his direction.
Okay. And then Daniel, your thoughts on McDonald or Lee Hunter?
Yeah, like you said, with McDonald having the age, I think that's a benefit for him. So I really don't think you can go wrong. In this particular case, I would go Lee Hunter, and with this fit here, in my opinion, I don't think you can go wrong though. But I like you brought up. I think the only two options were those two interior defensive linemen. So for sure.
Yep. Okay. This is a good exercise. And Daniel, you didn't even know what you were walking into when I asked you to podcast yesterday.
Yeah, I've never done. I thought we were doing full mock. And I was like, okay, I was playing with it around last night, so this is a whole lot. I think this is more up my alley, just kind of getting more team fits as players as we get closer here. I don't have a 200 or 100 big board. I have 10 deep on each position, which it comes out to around those numbers, but I don't know. I'm just more of a position ranking kind of guy. So this kind of helps me with more team fits. And there's a few team fits. There's really no other team fit I like more than Ted Hurst to the Buffalo Bills. I mean, you're going to hear me talking Ted Hurst and Buffalo Bills nonstop.
I'm going to be joining you on that train. Because I would probably be Ted Hurst over Casey Concepcion. There's a couple people that have Concepcion like really high as like wide receiver 2.
He was wide receiver 1
for be a Bills fan.
Yeah, he was one for some people, coming into the season. But you made a great point last year and last draft cycle, and you said the big guy is always going to be big, and the fast guy is not always going to be fast. And
yes,
this guy Ted Hurst, he checks both boxes, so why not?
Yep. So, Jake, do you want to take a moment, introduce yourself, tell everybody how they can find all of your other draft content?
Yeah, at Jake NFL Draft is the spot to find all of that. You'll see the link for YouTube there. Do a lot of prospect breakdowns on that. We picked Lee Hunter for the Bills. Just dropped that a couple days ago. So that's out there to look at and see what I think separates him from some of the other D tackles in this class. And then Substack link is there as well. Doing some probably more breakdowns on the SEC guys over there instead of YouTube. And there'll be stuff on Reese and some of the top guys as well, just as we kind of traverse. Up to draft season. But plenty going on. If you go to at Jake NFL Draft and you find those links there, that will take you to plenty of content.
Daniel.
Yeah, I'm one half of Home Squad Sports here with Dalton, and we cover college football on a week-to-week basis. Off season, we're heavy on recruiting and NFL draft. So right now we are, about to hit the camp trail. We go to our first camp next week, and working on our top 100 quarterback list there at the high school level. So help a lot of kids get recruited there. That's really our main focus outside of just covering college football on a week-to-week basis, just in depth, and then obviously draft content with you fellas. And it's been a pleasure. I've had a ball.
Yeah, and Daniel, Jake, I appreciate both of you guys being here in the middle of the day on a Saturday. This is our second of we have 5 or 6 podcasts today. So we have a lot of new guests coming on, but I appreciate both of you guys showing up, podcasting, we're putting out good content. Want to give a special shout out to Daniel and Home Squad Sports. So Home Squad has a lot of great college football and recruiting content, and Draft Professor is going to be leveraging that more over the summer. So you will see Daniel and Dalton and one of the other people they podcast with, his name is Will Thomas. You will see them a lot on Draft Professor over the summer as we break down college football like no other channel. So we'll have an SEC podcast. We're going to have an ACC podcast, a Big Ten podcast, and a Big 12 podcast. And each of those is going to be breaking down the players in that conference. So if you're looking for who to watch over the summer, we're going to be able to give you top 20 to top 30 lists by conference. That's not just the top 30 wide receiver list. We're going to be able to tell you the 30 best wide receivers in the SEC and the 30 best in the Big Ten. And then we'll start to filter and meld that together into what a draft board looks like further into the October timeframe. But we can't do that without Home Squad Sports and all of the work that you guys do there. So I'm really appreciative of you guys being involved with the channel. So thank you.
No problem. I appreciate you having me.
Yep. So for Jake, Daniel, myself, and the 80 podcasters at the Draft Professor, thank you so much for watching. We will see you on a podcast again in about 1 hour. Thank you, everybody.